I'm very, very happy for you to be joining all of us here on this live recording of episode 20 of Inspiring Insights. The big 20, big 2-0. My name is Erin. My pronouns are she and they. I am from a small town in Newfoundland called Burin, and now I live in Toronto, and I offer online mindfulness and Reiki services on a global scale. The silver lining of the pandemic, after all. I come from a long line of ancestors of Irish and English farmers, fishers, and miners who didn't always have a chance to speak up. And now, ever since I was born, I always knew that I wanted to get into the business of amplifying voices of people that I love specifically. And every day I wake up and I ask myself this question: what makes me feel alive? You could ask yourself, what makes me feel inspired? Same question. And the answer is always, for me, connecting with folks who have aligned themselves with their own healing abilities. And, in answering that for myself, I spoke that dream into reality and I created this show. And this is really what Inspiring Insights is all about. It's a space to share the passions of wellness providers and coaches and practitioners, and to hear their stories alongside audience members and fans like you folks. So thank you all for being here. Inspiring Insights was a show created by Reawaken Co., which is an online education platform focused on connecting you to the right natural wellness practitioner so that you don't get lost in our current, somewhat disempowering, somewhat broken system. And doing the work of, finding that practitioner, doing the work of your own self-care, your own, decolonizing, shedding ingrained oppressions, whatever else is coming to you during this year. It can be hard and it can be heavy, and it's important to keep doing it. So I commend you. And that's why it's important to have a very good support network alongside of you. And I really appreciate all the wellness professionals that have been on here so far. And if you haven't seen our YouTube channel, go check it out. It's Reawaken Co. Inspiring Insights. Just type that into YouTube and there's a bunch of episodes there. So if you are, and I know that some people have already commented on the chat box, that's great. You're here live with us tonight. I love seeing all of you and saying and popping in, saying hello, etc. And please use the chat as much as you can, as much as you want. I'm all for engagement, even if it's, just to share a little emoji or a question or like a heck yes, I love what she just said there. And just to also acknowledge the folks that are watching the replay of this. I see you, I feel you. I thank you for being here and I feel your energy, and I really, really commend you for taking this step in your health. So tonight, without further ado, I bring a very special guest to you, Jennifer Ide. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello, Erin. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you so much for being here. Let me tell the audience a little bit more about you, and then we'll get right into it.
Sure.
So, Jennifer, you are a registered BioEnergetics Intolerance Elimination Practitioner, BIE for short.
Yeah.
And a certified nutritional practitioner as well. So after, successfully reversing her own severe eczema, and I've seen pictures, incredible difference from then till now, Jen, and using a completely natural approach, no creams, no needles, no pills. Jen firmly believes that it is possible to properly heal your skin despite your genetic predispositions. So her experience inspired her to create a practice, Holistic Skin Artisan, that focuses primarily on skin health. Jennifer is dedicated to helping others heal their skin from the inside out using energy medicine and holistic nutrition. And she works mostly with those who are experiencing eczema, acne, or hives. Check her out on Instagram if you want to go ahead and follow her right now. She's at Holistic Skin Artisan on Instagram. So welcome, Jen.
Hello. Yes.
Let's get going. And folks, this goes without saying, but if you have questions throughout, go ahead and and pop it in the chat. I can actually mark it as a question, and then we'll save it for the end when we actually have time for opening up some more dialogue. So before we start, Jen, maybe we can just start a little bit more in your background. What brought you to this path? What brought you to that skin condition realm?
Yeah, I actually, before I answer your question, can I just take this opportunity to thank you, actually, even for having me tonight, and more importantly, to create actually this platform to allow practitioners like myself to come on and actually just share what we're doing in the health and wellness space. Super grateful for that, because I don't think there's many platforms like this out there. You may be, I think, the only one. So thank you so much for this. This is super exciting for me. So to answer your question, my background, the journey that I've taken seems very unconventional. I'll probably start, back what seems like back in the day. I come from a scientific background. I was studying biochemistry during my graduate studies. And I thought I was en route to I thought I was going to go into medical school. But then after finishing my graduate studies, there was just something about medical school that I didn't feel was for me. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love medicine, and my mom is actually here this evening. She can definitely vouch for the fact that ever since I was 4 years old, my brother and I would be glued to the TV to watch open heart surgery. So I think it was instilled in us at a very young age, this love for medicine, and more importantly, I think just how the human body functions overall. I think I've always had an interest in that. And so if I didn't go do medicine, what did I do? I actually ended up going into the performing arts. So shortly after graduating a biochemistry with a biochemistry degree, I decided to pack up my life and move from Canada to New York City to study acting. I think when people hear that, they think that's such a large jump, like that's a whole 180 kind of turn, which it is. But what made acting really appealing to me, again, was this love to understand how humans work, but it just came from a different perspective. I was immersed in the science field for so long, and I got to understand how human beings on some level work, but more on a microscopic, a molecular level. But now going into acting, it's more of okay, how do we as a whole organism kind of function? And
wow.
There was this idea about, using my own being, my voice, my thought patterns, my movement, to tell a compelling story. And so I got to understand humanity kind of in a different way, as I just mentioned. So that idea really drew me towards the performing arts. And so I went to New York City, completed a 2-year performing arts diploma. And then once my visa expired, I had to come back to my home country, which is Canada. I'm originally from Vancouver. So coming out of New York City, I decided I chose Toronto to live because I thought the acting opportunities here were were better, and then there were a lot more of them. And so when I got to Toronto, actually, I had already started developing eczema around my eyes when I was in New York, but it didn't end up spreading all over my body until I got to Toronto. And so you can imagine that this made acting really, really hard. When you're covered with all these rashes and your skin's literally peeling off, I couldn't conceal it with makeup. It was impossible. So acting, that actually came to a complete halt right there because of the eczema. But then it it most certainly led me into what I'm doing now. I, went through the whole conventional medical system, saw doctor after doctor after doctor, was told that, because this is in your genes, unfortunately, the only solution for you is system management. And the option was pretty much topical steroid creams. And, I know steroid phobia is a very, very, real thing out there. I definitely had that. But my symptoms were so bad that I, caved in and said, okay, I'll do topical steroids for like 2 weeks max. And so that's what I did. And then coming off the medications, I had actually the worst flare up of my life. And at that point, that was, I think, the turning point for me, where I went from, using conventional medicine all the way to alternative. So I decided to do a lot of my research, I decided to do a lot of research on my own. And I just learned a lot about the powers of food and how you can actually just use something as deceptively as simple as food to actually heal your body, including your skin. I ended up working with a holistic nutritionist to get guidance on like how to do a proper gut bowel cleanse. And, with that protocol, within 3 weeks, I had about a 60% turnaround. Now, the other 40% remained a mystery for the next 1 to 2 years, and I couldn't figure it out. And it just so happens that when I was getting certified in holistic nutrition, there was a gentleman who came to the school to give a guest lecture on something called iridology. And he actually saw my arm. I had this massive rash going from my shoulder all the way to my wrist. And he said that you have a fat and oil intolerance. I've never heard of such thing before. It sounded so far-fetched and very, very odd. The concept of like, how does your body become intolerant to something like fats and oils? They're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They're in meats. They're in cooking oils. They're in salad dressings. They're everywhere. So to test out his theory, I just tried to avoid fats, took out fats as much as I could from my diet, and I actually saw like an improvement in my skin. The improvement was enough to be noticeable. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I think there's something to what this man is saying. Like, and I wanted to be able to eat fats and oils without having a reaction. So I went over to his clinic, and that's how I was introduced to BIE. And so with BIE, after just one session, my arm cleared out within 24 hours. So I said I have to get licensed in this and actually learn how this gets done and help other people, using this like fascinating modality. So that's pretty much how I got here today. It was just through my own journey with eczema. So, and healing it just through nutrition and BIE alone. Yeah.
Wow, Jennifer. Thank you.
Sorry, that's like really, really long, but that's kind of like
necessary and really good, really juicy. I love that. And
good. I'm like rambling too much, Erin, just like to be like that.
No, you are allowed to speak your truth here. And I think that's what I was going to say. It's super important to acknowledge our past, and it's also really important to move on from that. And I think that's the turning point, right? That's for anyone who watches sports, like the TSN turning point. It's like
exactly. That's always that point.
Yeah. Did we make a choice to say, I'm gonna change what I do right now? Right. Whether that includes like changing an addiction, obviously getting support for that, or like changing your habits, changing your diet. It's so important. And I always reiterate this because like folks know more or less how to get healthy, right? We know that exercise is good. We know like that certain foods are bad for us and that we should avoid them. But there's another part to it. It's this shifting of perception, a shifting of our own consciousness that says, okay, I'm going to make this decision and stick to it. And I so appreciate that you shared yours. So
yeah, good.
So, your story, it's so inspiring, and I want to get more into, actually BIE. So BioEnergetics Intolerance Elimination.
Yeah.
Tell us what that is. How does it combine well, obviously, on your approach with holistic nutrition, and how can that help folks?
Sure. Yeah. BIE is really just it's a way to get the body back into energetic balance. So how we do this is it's essentially a two-step process. So the idea is that, the person is coming in because they're symptomatic, right? Like in my case, because I focus primarily on skin health, someone's coming in either with eczema or hives or acne. And this is usually caused by some sort of internal imbalance. So my job is to find out, well, what is causing that imbalance, or what in the body is out of balance, and then to bring them back into balance. So the two-step process is, the first step is to identify, okay, what we call it a stressor. So what are the stressors, which is basically a frequency pattern of whatever substance I'm interested in testing the client to. So that stressor could be gluten, it could be dairy, it could be pollen, it could be dust, etc. So we use an assessment tool called muscle testing to see how the body responds to these various stressors. And if the result is positive, we then move on to step 2, which is to imprint the frequency pattern of those culprit stressors back onto the body. And what this does is it basically introduces the body back to what the substance is, and allows the body to understand that the substance isn't harmful. Because that's what's happening when somebody's coming across like say a particular food that's aggravating, or like pollen, they're sneezing, they're getting the hives, they're getting the watery eyes. It's because the body thinks that the pollen is a threat, when in actuality it's not. So we're imprinting the frequency onto the body to re-educate the body on what the identity of that substance is, and saying, hey, body, you don't need to freak out. It's just a pollen. It's okay. So that's basically the premise of BIE. That's very, very high level, like a high level description of what BIE is. And then your second question of how it kind of, it can be coupled with nutrition in order to help people with conditions like eczema. So essentially, as I mentioned before, BIE is to bring the body back into energetic balance. So it's more dealing with the energetics, non-physical sides of healing. New holistic nutrition, uses foods, supplements, and water to bring the body back into biochemical balance. So we're using actual matter to get the body right. So I feel like the combination of the two creates just like a really powerful approach to helping people heal. Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Okay. And just
does that make sense, or was that kind of like all over the map? Or
totally. No, yeah, and that was great. For folks, and because I've experienced BIE, I think maybe I'm understanding it maybe better. But just to reiterate, it is energy medicine, right? So, and I'm curious, maybe put this in the chat, everybody, if you really even knew, had an idea that there are energy fields around our body and within our body running through,
right? That's a good point.
Running through our physical matter that we can't see. And because I'm trained in naturopathic medicine, obviously we learned about acupuncture and the meridians going through the body, and not a lot of people know or are aware of those subtle energies and the bodies outside of our bodies that are still us, that are still our souls and our energies. And so, that's what kind of intrigues me about BIE, is that even so we talk about, we as a person have those more subtle bodies, those energy bodies. Foods, stressors like pollen, you mentioned gluten, there could be so many other things that one has like a reaction to. Mm-hmm. Those also have energies, right? And those frequencies is what you call them, is what Jennifer actually tests during her session. So, I just wanted to point that out because for someone who has no idea about energy medicine, and maybe I'm coming up from a biased position because I also, I'm a Reiki energy practitioner. So I try to break it down as simple as possible for folks to understand that, there's so much more going on than we even know, than we even see. And we don't always have to understand it intellectually to see changes and to make like the physical matter actually change in our bodies, which I think is so hella neat. And our bodies are incredible, innate healing beings that we don't even, we try to get in the way of most of the time when we do intervention. So it's beautiful. And we can talk about, that more when we talk about pharmaceuticals coming up. But Yeah, that was awesome, Jennifer. Thank you for explaining.
Much for clarifying. Yeah, for helping people understand, that we're not just made up of physical matter. We're actually more energy beings than we are actually physical matter. So yeah, no, that's really a really important concept to know for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I do see your question, Daryl. I'm just going to leave it for now and then come back to it in a bit. So Jennifer, what can folks expect? So, you have a practice, you practice here in Toronto. So, when they come into your office, what will they expect as they work with you?
Yeah, actually, even our meet point starts even before the client actually physically coming into the clinic. Oftentimes, the clients are really curious as to what BIE is and how the muscle testing gets done, and there's a lot of questions around the modality, and most understandably so, because again, it is a form of energy medicine, and there's just a lot of the concepts can feel very foreign at first. So clients typically will book a meet and greet with me, and it's done virtually or over the phone. And really during that 15 minutes of the meet and greet, really they are getting educated on what BIE is, but more so too is, am I the right practitioner for them? Am I fit? Because I think that also plays a role in the person's healing process. Is the right practitioner. And so once we, have a great connection, the client will book an initial consultation. They'll come in, and it's a 60-minute session, and 90% of that 60 minutes is dedicated towards muscle testing. So I'm testing anywhere between, depending on the age of the client, anywhere between 50 to 150 stressors. So we're, we're looking at everything from enzymes to hormones to pathogenic bacteria to fungi to probiotics, etc., to see what exactly is out of balance. And then the very last portion of the session is the imprinting. So the actual BIE part, which is the actual frequency imprinting, literally is 5 minutes. So a lot of the sessions really about figuring out what the person's intolerant to or not responding well to. So that's what people can expect when they come in, is basically getting a thorough assessment, and then getting one imprinting for that one initial session. Yeah.
Got it. Thanks for explaining that. And so you mentioned muscle testing, and I want to touch on that because not everyone knows what muscle testing is.
Yes.
I would maybe say that it's like the muscle's reaction, like the strength or the weakness of a certain, like anything. It could be a thought, it could be an intention, it could be the stressor, as you talk about. So is that like a accurate definition?
Absolutely. So just even going back to what you were mentioning about how we're made up, mostly of energy. Everything, including us, everything in this world has a certain frequency pattern associated with it. We call it a frequency signature. So, a piece of gluten is going to have its own frequency signature. Dairy is going to have its own frequency signature. And even within dairy itself, there's so many components that have their own frequency signatures, like the casein, the whey, the albumin, et cetera, right? The lactose. Mm-hmm. And so, what muscle testing is exposing, the tester muscle I use is pretty much the forearm. And so I'm exposing the forearm to one frequency or several frequency patterns. And I'm looking at the response of that muscle when the arm is exposed to that frequency. And so if the arm goes weak, that's an indication that the body's frequency is in dissonance to the frequency in the vial. So the vial carries the frequency pattern of, let's say, gluten. Mm-hmm. And so if the muscle goes weak when it sees the frequency pattern of gluten, then as a BIE practitioner, we say, okay, well, that's an intolerance. That's a body's intolerance or reaction to the gluten frequency. So that's how I hope that clarifies how muscle testing works. It's very simple. It's non-invasive, and it's accurate. So that's why we use it in our practice as the assessment tool. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah.
So, and then just to follow up on my last question. So that's like the first session that someone has with you. For someone who's experiencing acne or eczema or even hives, say, what would be, the expected amount of time that they would work with you? And I know obviously it varies on case-to-case basis and those kinds of things, but like, can you give a ballpark?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good question. A lot of clients ask, like, how many sessions will I need before I start seeing results? On average, it's 2 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So on average, 2 to 5 sessions, you should start seeing a noticeable difference. Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
With skin issues, hives seems to be a lot easier to address, but with something like eczema, we know that skin issues are really, the underlying cause is multifactorial. Mm-hmm. So it's not usually, from what I've seen in my practice, it's not just one thing. So it may take some time. So I'm just explaining like what differentiates like someone just needing 2 sessions versus 5. It may just take a little bit more time to identify all the culprits involved. So can I give one like client example of like how to roll down? Okay. So
yes, please.
Okay. So I had this one lady who came to me, and she came to me primarily for hives. She would break out in massive hives on the side of her torso. And then also her lip would blow out maybe 5 times the size of her normal lip. And we managed to address the hives within probably, I think, 2 sessions, but it was the lip, the swelling of the lip that I just could not figure out. And so I asked her to keep a food journal for a week to record everything that she was eating and drinking, along with the symptoms as well, like time and date for the food and with the food and the symptoms. And when I was assessing her food journal, I mean, she ate very, very clean. There was nothing unusual about her diet, but what I noticed was that every single time she ate chicken and nuts, not even together within the same meal, just on the same day, she had the lip swelling. So when I muscle tested her to just the chicken frequency, it was negative. When I muscle tested her to a nut, she was eating peanuts, to the peanut frequency, it was negative. It was when I combined the 2 vials together to place on her arm that the muscle test came out as a positive result. So we call that a cluster intolerance. It's the combined frequencies that created the intolerance. Now, again, it took more than 2 sessions to figure that cluster intolerance out. So this is just to say that sometimes the investigation can take a little bit of time, but once we get it, you can imagine it feels really rewarding. So yeah.
Wow. It's okay. Hands up if anyone's ever experienced hives, for one.
Yeah.
I resonate with that. And then also just to your point, and I'm anybody who knows me knows that I'm a giant XFiles fan.
Oh, I was an extra in their very last episode.
Oh my God, no way.
In the big stadium. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Anyway, what I was going to say is that what I really like about the XFiles, specifically Dana Scully's character, is that she, is an investigator, right? So she not only works for the FBI, but she's also a doctor. And I so appreciate that how in that show she combines her two, and they actually allow her to do the autopsies and, discover other things. And it's honestly, it's what, a lot of people in the wellness industry as a patient, maybe as a client, may not understand that, health is actually like a little bit of an investigation. So
it is 90% that. And that's what I love. That's the part of my job that I absolutely love the most. The harder the case, the better it is for me, for sure. Yeah.
Yes. And so that's the thing. And I think as a patient, it can get frustrating, obviously, to not see changes, to not see results, because we're conditioned socially to really, really expect something to like immediately fix us, right?
Yeah.
And with something like you deal with, like skin conditions, are often very chronic, right? So
Yeah,
the longer that someone's been experiencing the issue, this doesn't go for everything, but most likely the longer the treatment period has to be for that, right?
right, exactly.
So yeah, it's really interesting. Anyway, that was just like a little XFiles plug.
That's awesome.
I took it all the way back to 1993 and started the season.
Oh, it was so good.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Jen. So for those folks who are experiencing, any chronic skin condition, most likely they have had, like yourself, had some sort of prescription medication.
Yeah.
And by no means am I knocking prescription medications here. I think medicine is important and useful in a lot of cases. Now, what I wanted to know is, what's your thoughts on prescribed medications for something, say eczema, or maybe, you have some other thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I should have probably said this disclaimer at the very, very beginning. And that is like BIE is most certainly not intended to diagnose, treat, cure any sort of conditions. And it can't replace the advice from a regulated healthcare professional. So if a client comes in and sees me and they were prescribed antibiotics or steroid creams, it's not in my place to tell them to get off of them at all. And I think it really depends on how severe the inflammation is. The idea is to get the inflammation down as much as possible. And then my job is just really to work within that frame and try to identify the culprits and get the person's body normalized and balanced as quickly as possible as they're doing the conventional treatment. So I think sometimes the combination of the two is necessary in order to have like a successful and accelerated healing process.
Yeah, I like that change from successful to accelerated. And not always is health or progress of health linear, right? We expect of disease is is happiness, but it's not always the case.
No, exactly. So
yeah,
I'm not like completely against them, but I'm not for them either, obviously. I'm all for addressing the underlying cause, not just like masking the symptoms. So
yeah, and that's the difference, right? I think sometimes when you get prescribed medications, it's only for symptomatic relief, which is useful. And also not so useful when you're on that same medication for that symptom,
right?
For, longer, however long you need to be on it for.
Because I really do recognize and acknowledge when it comes to eczema, there's the condition it's not just a skin condition, right? There's a lot of like mental health, aspects associated with it. So sometimes, using topical steroid creams to really kind of get the flare under control is necessary. I completely understand, especially if you're, if you have a really big event coming up. Like I had a client who was getting married, right? Yeah. So there's just so many moving parts to it. So it's very, very case dependent for sure. Yeah.
And just a shout out to Catherine there. She's saying, I had eczema for more than 20 years and have had lots of cortisone creams and oral medications. And then I saw a naturopathic doctor for a few months and recovered.
Yes.
Healthy foods. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Catherine.
Yeah.
So, we're getting down to the wire here in terms of it's almost question period. So anybody who's having any thoughts pop up right now, just write them in the chat and we'll address them in just a few minutes. And before that, Jennifer, I wanted to maybe get your perspective on, and I know we kind of just touched on it already, but your perspective on the energetics side of skincare, that side of health, maybe even perhaps the emotional component that we don't always talk about that could very much relate to the physical health.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your emotional state has a tremendous influence on someone's state of health and healing process. I most certainly feel and do believe that if if the person is in a very, very positive state of mind, and they believe that healing is a possibility for them, the likelihood that they're going to heal is much higher than somebody who doesn't have to carry the same beliefs. So I think an emotional component is very, very, very is very important in the healing process. Absolutely. And I mean, we can even look at, there's different theories as to how emotions and health are connected. But if we even look at something like how different organs harbor like the different emotions. So the liver is responsible for anger. The pancreas is responsible for joy, right? So, and even if we look at the studies with transplantations, with organ transplants, that concept of emotions and personalities and temperaments being adopted by the donor, by the recipient.
Yes.
Right? They take on the certain emotional traits of the donor, right? So I think there's something to say that emotions do affect, like at the very cellular level, and therefore at the organ level, at the organism level. So I think there is a huge connection between emotions and health, absolutely. And I think the more positive of a state the person is in, the quicker their healing process is going to be, for sure. Yeah, I hope that was a kind of clear. I don't know, kind of jumped all over the.
Yeah, it was super clear. I want to thank you for saying that, and especially at a cellular level.
Yeah. There's our cells like hold the memory, and then they get transplanted into another human being. Like that kind of stuff just trips me out. But like there's studies that actually support this idea. So there has to be something going on with emotions and health, right?
Exactly. In my opinion, energy medicine is on the come up right now.
Yeah,
it's like this for maybe the last, 500 years ish, since the advent of like westernized models of care, allopathic medicine.
Right.
It's been that like thing that we've all just like shoved under the rug, right? And what happens to things that we shove under the rug? They come out when the shifts, right? Really? It becomes this like giant elephant in the room that we just haven't been talking about, right? So when we look at it, it's like, oh yeah, there it is. Like that's happening. No problem. We just don't have words for it yet. We don't have words to acknowledge it.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think I think the reason why it gets shoved underneath the rug is because we can't see it, touch it, taste it, smell it. Like we're beings that heavily rely on our senses, and because we can't see and touch this stuff, it almost feels like it's not even there, but it very much is. So
right on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, down to that very cellular level, like you said.
Yeah,
our emotions are just that. They're motions, they're energy in motion.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So everything is vibrating at a frequency.
Everything.
And I just love that. I love that. Jennifer, before we go into questions, I wanted to ask you if you had anything else to say, anything that you might have missed, or something specific that you wanted to show us or talk about.
I think really my message for tonight, for anybody who is watching or will be watching the recording, is just to know that like there's hope, right? I completely remember what it feels like what it felt like to like sit in my apartment by myself, covered in eczema. I can show you pictures. Yeah. Like covered in eczema. And I thought like I exhausted all options. Like I was in such a state of fear because I didn't know, like, was this condition going to get worse? Like, is it going to spread even further? Like, what is happening to my insides that's causing this? So I just really, really hope that whoever does watch or listen to this, that they just know that there's options out there for you, safe ones. And yeah, there's definitely hope for sure. Yeah. Oh, and I'll show you pictures if anyone's interested in what I used to look like. Because I know people say like, oh yeah, I used to have eczema, but then everyone's kind of perception of the severity of eczema is so subjective. Mm-hmm. So to share.
Yes, please.
For all those who would like to know, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
You can, eh?
Oh, just move it to the picture tab. Yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah. Okay. So this is what my face and my neck used to look like. So yeah, I was covered. This was all over my back, my arms, my torso, my legs.
Wow.
So pretty severe, guys. And actually right now, like I'm not wearing, I don't know how to get out of this.
Yeah, it's good.
Back? Okay. Yeah, we're back. So I'm not wearing any makeup right now. And like, this is my neck right here. So to go from like what you just saw in those pictures to this, like there was it was done without any medication at all. And the time frame was, as I mentioned, like with just nutrition, I got the 60% turnaround probably within 3 weeks. And then it took me a while to figure out the last piece of it, but I eventually got there. And I should mention like that I am genetically predisposed to having eczema. Like I've had it almost all my life. Like it just didn't get that severe until my adulthood. So every single winter I would just have like this little patch on my back that would flare up. But then it would go away come the spring and summer. And so it wasn't anything to be concerned about. But then when I was in New York City doing my performing arts diploma, that's when it just started around the eyes, and then boom, it just like went wild. So yeah, so I like, this is just to say that it is in my genetics. And so your genes do not dictate your fate is another message I would like to put out there for people. Is that yeah, if you're even if it's in your genetics, you're not doomed for sure. And we know this like with the study of epigenetics, right? Like it's all about, it doesn't matter what genes you have, it matters what genes get turned on and off that really matter, right? And what dictates that gene expression is pretty much your environment, your lifestyle, your diet. So things that are completely in your control, right? So don't lose hope.
Yes, thank you for that, and thank you for sharing. You know, that's not easy to share. You know, right. at a time when you felt pretty vulnerable, and to actually even share those photos. You know, that's huge. And yeah, I think you stand as a testament for your own healing and your own process of exactly what you do right now. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And so now we're going to go into questions. I just want to point out if we pop down from the chat option, you'll see a little offers section. I've put Jennifer's website in there. Just click that. You can click start and it takes you right to Jennifer's website to book in one of those discovery consultations with Jennifer you've heard her speak. If you like her, go for it. And if you're still unsure and you need more time to think about it, no problem, because that consultation is completely free, right, Jennifer?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, perfect. So you can book in with Jennifer there. And for everyone listening, this is also going to be in a podcast format. So I will put that link in the show notes for everyone listening right now. And okay, so we have one question here from Daryl asked earlier. What causes this non-recognition of a certain type of food energy that causes an allergic reaction in some people? And so I think just to bring it back, we were talking about when the body is stressed and how it kind of creates that dissonance between energy frequency, like itself and whatever else you're.
Yeah. So a really, really good question. And that's a question that I get a lot from clients. Like, well, like how did my body become intolerant to this thing? Because before I was able to eat wheat, I was able to eat pasta and bagels and I was fine. And now all of a sudden, like, what happened? So the theory of BIE says that whenever our bodies undergo a state of stress, our bodies are going to make a negative association to whatever our bodies are exposed to during that period. So I like to illustrate this with an analogy. Like say if you're, driving down the highway, you're eating an apple and you get into a car accident. The body doesn't know how to decipher between the trauma of the accident versus the apple. You may think it's the apple. So every single time after that accident, when you eat an apple, the body's like, oh no, the last time I saw this, I don't like it, harmful, block, reject. How that may manifest symptom-wise, it could be hives, it could be gas, bloating, headaches, etc. So that's how the intolerance, it was created, was during a period of stress, and then the body's making that negative association to that particular substance. So the point of BIE is to identify what the body has lost the ability to recognize. In that example would be the apple, and then introduce the frequency of apple back to the body so the person can eat apple without having any sort of symptoms. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that analogy. It's super easy to see.
To understand kind of how the intolerance got created in the first place. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And thank you, Daryl, for asking that question.
Thank you, Daryl.
Is there any other questions right now from folks? If not, I have another question, Jennifer.
Yeah, go for it.
I wanted to, going back to muscle testing, because this is like, I'm so curious about muscle testing and I love it. Can you explain how you even interpret if the body's energies are in alignment or in, the opposite of dissonance, alignment, I guess?
Yeah. So at the very beginning, before I even start exposing the frequencies to my client to assess whether or not the muscle will test weak or strong to that particular frequency, I do a baseline test. And so actually even before the baseline test, we're doing basically a very simple muscle test to see the direction of the person's electrical magnetic field. So very similar to a magnet, our bodies have a positive and a negative pole. The top of our head and the back of our hand are negatively charged. The palm of our hand, the soles of our feet are positively charged. So what I typically do is I get my client to hold their hand like this, and they'll actually reach out their arm. I press it down. So I'm using this as their tester muscle. And then I'll ask them to invert their hand like this. What this does is severs their electrical field. It's now a negative pole and a negative pole, which are like charges. So when the client does this, when I push down with the same force as I did previously, the arm will loses complete strength. So what this just tells me is it indicates the direction of their electromagnetic field, and we want it to go basically this way. And if it's in the right direction, we proceed with the muscle testing assessment with all the different frequencies. If it's inverted, I actually tap on the heart meridian to get it back into the original direction. Yeah.
The heart meridian?
The heart meridian. Yeah. So it's just located right here, like below the pinky, like on the wrist.
Interesting.
So tap it. Yeah. And then that will bring, usually 90% of the time, it will bring it back to the original direction. If I can't get it after tapping on the heart meridian, unfortunately, we have to just reschedule the appointment. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So intriguing. I love this.
Yeah.
Because energy medicine practitioners are so varied in the way that they practice. So I wanted to, just nitpick that a little bit and see what else we get out of it. And that was a great explanation as well. Thank you for that. It made me think of, and I made a reference to this in another episode about energy medicine as well, on the show One Strange Rock.
Okay.
Familiar with that? Will Smith is the narrator, and it's like about the Earth. And it interviews 7 different astronauts that have been like seeing Earth from outer space, basically, and they describe it.
Right.
And so it goes into the science and everything. And Earth, similarly, as what you said, has, we know them. It's the North and the South Pole, right?
Right.
And so literally, this is the magnet. This is the positive end and the negative end, right? Yeah. And so because the Earth is rotating on its axis, and because our core is made of molten lava, which is, a lot of molten elements, metals mostly,
Right.
because they're spinning, that creates the charge.
Right.
And so that aura, Earth's aura, the sentient aura, actually is one of the things that protects Earth from the atmosphere from burning up, because we're so close to the sun.
So cool.
Isn't that wild?
There's so many things out there in this world that just like blow my mind on a constant basis.
So like even within us, right? We have these little things swirling around.
Yeah. Exactly. I hope that answered your question. Did that answer your question, Erin? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Okay, good.
I'm going to leave the floor open for another minute or so in case more folks have any questions. Up until this point, I haven't asked you, Jennifer, how folks can get in contact with you other than your website, which I posted. Can you just reiterate the Instagram and however else?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. The easiest place to find me would be on Instagram, which is Holistic Skin Artisan. So holistic with an H, Skin Artisan is my handle, so my Instagram handle. And then I'm also on Facebook underneath Jennifer Ide. So you can also find me on Facebook. But yeah, my primary platforms are Instagram and then my website. Yeah.
Perfect. And I just put that in the chat for everyone.
Awesome. Cool. Yes.
So final thing to clue up, Jen, what inspires you most?
Oh my gosh. What inspires me most?
Big question.
That is a really big question. Holy moly. Oh my gosh, like what doesn't inspire me? Oh my gosh. So the only reason why I'll say this is because it's the most recent source of inspiration that I just gained. And it was a Netflix series. It's called Surgeon's Cut. And it's basically a 4-part, there's 4 episodes. Each episode is dedicated to a certain surgeon. So episode 1 is a fetal surgeon. The second episode is a neurosurgeon. The third one was a liver transplant surgeon. And then the fourth one was a heart surgeon. And I watched all 4 episodes 3 times. And what inspired me most is watching these doctors so incredibly dedicated to their craft. It's so moving and so touching. Yeah. So that inspires me. Yeah.
I love that. And that obviously makes a difference for you in your own craft.
Yeah, exactly. Like watching somebody do what they love and be good at it, that's like the most like inspiring thing in the world to me. So yeah.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah. Like crying. I've seen it 3 times, and like every time I bawl. I'm like, oh my gosh, these human beings are so beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Thank you again, Jennifer Ide, for being here. A BIE practitioner and holistic nutritionist, sharing her love and knowledge and wisdom with the world. People are saying, oh, that you're making them cry now. It's beautiful, this thing that we call inspiration. I just love being here and sharing folks' message with the world, and thank you all for being here as well. If you'd like, we are here every Wednesday doing this Inspiring Insights show live, recorded. I also shared with you our YouTube channel. We have this in podcast format as well. Just go on Google, type in Reawaken Co, and you will find us where you need to find us. I'm on my own Instagram at the Erin Edwards, and that's my website as well if you want to work with me. And I just want to say thank you all for being here on episode 20 of our show. This is a big one, and I'm so happy that we've, cheers to 20, and here's to 20 more and beyond. Yes. And thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.